Hello and welcome to the Musty Game Dev. I am here with another video, and on this channel we love games and we love game development. So as you can see here, I got the environment set up from last week still. Can I go through this circle? Yes, I can. That's pretty cool. So yeah, this video will be a little bit different. I'm gonna focus mainly on coding and verse. And so if you want to look up the verse language reference guide, I think that's what it's called, that would be a good thing to check out. In fact, let me bring it up right now. 50 years of Microsoft. Nice. So yeah, verse language reference. And this is a very good guide to always kind of look at. And the things that we'll look at today can be very, very interesting things. I want to look at comments here just to make sure like we know what that is, right? So a code comment explains something about the code. Comments are ignored when the program runs, meaning that they're not compiled or they don't run. They're not, yeah, I guess the best way to say it is they don't run. So you can put whatever you want after you put this hashtag and everything's good to go there, right? There's also inline comments, which I don't use. I haven't seen too much of, but they might be important with a, I guess you call that a less than sign, and then a hashtag, and then the comment, and then a hashtag and greater than sign. And then we have multi-line comments. You just break it up into multi-line. I may not have to do an example of this, but just so that you know, you can do that right there. You can do nested block, right? So it looks like if you just use the less than sign and the greater than sign, you're able to do a lot more with it, which is pretty cool. Indented comment, anything that appears on the new line after. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that is pretty cool. So that's comments. If I need to do an example of that, I will. But the other thing that we can also look at that would be very interesting would be down here, modules and paths. So this is important in the sense of understanding how to organize your code for a UEFN project or UEFN game, right? And so in typical programming projects, you don't just have it all in one file, which is what we've been doing. So, for example, so in UEFN game projects, you don't have to put all your code in one game file, which is what we have been doing. So let me bring up here, what's it, gameplay tag device, wall control device, whatever. We'll just bring up one. We'll bring up one of these. Oh yeah, this one looks broken. No, no. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why this keeps happening. I have to just go back in here and go to verse, build verse code. It wasn't always like that. So wonder if that's like a change in something there. And then this is all red, which is very annoying. But yeah, so this is an example of a comment right here. This is mainly what you will see in the comment. But if we wanted to do a multi-line comment, right, you can comment all of this out, which is sometimes useful if you're trying to test some code out. And then we'll do a file save. This should compile, I think. We'll see. Let's do verse, build verse code. Nope, does not. So verse validation errors. This level contains devices that refer to these missing verse classes, wall control device. So yeah. So let's exit that. Exit this. So we need to have at least a class in here. So let's say if we just do this, and then we do this, that I think should compile. But let's see. Verse surprises me every single day. Oh yes, let's save. And it compiles. That's cool. So that's a nice little example of multi-line comments. Right. Okay. So, but looking at modules and paths, right? Mainly just modules here, but a verse module is an atomic unit of code. I mean, essentially, it doesn't have to be, but you're trying to make your pieces of code, groups of code, as one solution or one problem solution focused as possible. So for instance, for games, if you have something, if you have some code that's going to manage a player, like a player controller, going into more my Unity mode there, then you just want to have a player controller component. I'm still trying to figure out how that works in a more verse-like way, which is why I'm doing this video. Um, but yeah, so they have here a verse module specified by the folder in the file hierarchy of the project, and the module's name is the name of the folder. All .verse files in the same folder as the file are part of that verse module and can access definitions from other verse files in the module without explicitly importing the module. So that just means if you have like multiple modules, if you're in the same module, then you can access definitions from the same module um, without having to import it. Or I guess if you're from other verse files in the module without explicitly importing the module. Interesting. Okay. A module is identified by its path. For example, verse.org or /verse.org/verse. Verse paths provide a global namespace for identifying things and borrow from the idea of web domains. These paths are persistent and unique and discoverable by any verse programmer. Yeah, I don't like this method, to be honest. It's to me it's kind of confusing. But maybe it'll make more sense in the future to me. But for now, let's just create a new module. That's what we're gonna do. A new module. And we can do that by right clicking in here, create a new verse file. So let me just make sure I did that. Slow down again. I'm gonna right click on content here, create new verse file. You can also just right click on the project and add new verse file to project. So I'm gonna do that here. And then it's let's see. It could be a verse device per se. Let's see. But I think I'm gonna go basic. I made a mistake before on this, but let's try it again. So let's do player stats dot. Ooh, it's not gonna let me do the dot verse. I guess it'll add that regardless, but it's not a verse device, and we're just gonna create empty. Let's see. Okay, I thought I'd see it in here. All right, let's go. Okay, so I guess it's not in here. That's interesting, but it is here. Okay. All right, so there's our comment here. I'm gonna just get rid of that. And we are gonna create a new module. We're gonna go look at this here, and we just use the colon equal sign module format for the new module. And we're gonna say player stats module. Now, by default, again, if we go back to documentation, the access definition, right? The access you have if you want to use this module in other pieces of code, It's going to be by default, it's actually going to be internal, or in other languages, you call that private. So you have to actually intentionally make sure it's public. And we will get to that in just a moment. But let me make sure I get the syntax right. We need a colon at the end of module. There we go. All right. So within the player stats module, and I wonder how that's going to play out. Again, just kind of experimenting here and see how this works out. It's not really a tutorial video kind of thing. I'm just figuring things out on my end. So we want to create, let's actually, yeah, let's do player stats as a module, and then let's scroll up here, go back to that, open up as a new tab, and let's look at composite types. There we go. And look at the class composite type, which is what we've been using to make our custom verse devices in the first place. We're creating a class that's inheriting from, I think it's created device or something like that. Let's look at the wall control device. Yeah, so wall control device is a class inheriting from creative device. So that's what we've been doing anyways. So we're creating a new class, and then I guess because of my naming, I didn't do it quite the best way, but let's call this pstat for player stat. And let's see, we'll say this equals a class. And then, oops. So that equals a class. We'll go down here. Okay, so we got some properties here that we can set up, and then a function or method, depending on again how you want to call it. So we're gonna say for a player stat, we'll just look at points here. Let's look at this one more time here, and that will be just an int. We'll start it off at 0. Okay, cool. So this looks good so far. And let's see. Okay. All right. And I'll just leave a new line here just for my own personal sake. All right. So we have player stats module, pstat as a class, and then we have points as a property. And let's keep it like that. So for instance, if we wanted to bring this over, let's get rid of this comment. And let's say for this class, we wanted to make, so then we have player stats, and that is going to equal player or a p stat, something like that, and now equal p stat, something like that. All right, now it's going to give us an error. Um, unknown identifier p stat. Do you mean player stats p stat? I did. Okay, so it's going to give us an error first because it's like as you're trying to look this up. So for us here, I think we just do using. Let's actually look at the documentation here. Let's see. So if I create a new thing, your verse folder / your module. Okay. or the file is in the same directory. Okay, cool. So let's just do that. Player stats, that's our module. And then, so now it's giving us another error here saying invalid access of internal class in here, right? And that is because by default, this module is internal, right? So if I go down here and try to compile it, go to verse, build verse code, it's going to give us an error. And this is error that we just read here. Script error 3593, invalid access of internal class. So that's what that is. Okay? So even if you don't intend to make your own modules for your UEFN games, understanding how these modules and paths are working also helps us understand like how to use the modules given to us by Epic for like creative devices like the button device like we checked out last week. So we need to fix this. So first of all, we need to make this public. And also that's another good point too. You can actually just go up here and see an example. So this module, so /Fortnite.com UI, right? So public, so that's like what we see here. /Fortnite.com /UI. Well, I guess, yeah, if we wanted to have access to it. So there's different modules in here, I'm assuming. Let's look. Let's see. Control F. Yeah, so different devices, right? So we have /Fortnite.com devices, and that's how we're able to access the button device and other devices. Okay, so this is public now. We're gonna file save here. So that gets rid of that, but we're just gonna have another invalid access of internal class. So we also have to make the class, right? So this is a module here. This is a module here. Let's go down to the button device that we were looking at before, and this is public, has a public accessor. All right, and looking at accessors, that is here, I believe. Specifiers, so access specifiers. Access specifiers define what can interact with a member and how. You can apply access specifiers to the following: the identifier for a member, like its name, or the keyword var for a member. So you can do that too. So you have public. This is universally accessible, meaning once you like, if you were to like put your code in GitHub and then allow people to like do a clone of your Git repository, and they put that into their project, if you set everything up as public, they can access it with their code as well. And then protected. The identifier can only be accessed by the current class and any subtypes. And then we have private. The identifier can only be accessed in the current, immediately, in closing scope. Okay, it's just in the scope. So be it within a module or within like a class. And then this could be accessed by the current class and any subtypes. So that's if you, for instance, for create a device, right, is a subtype or is a class that you inherit from for your custom verse devices, like wall control device. If there are any protected properties or members in the creative device, we can access them through the wall control device in here because we are a subtype of creative device. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. I probably should have made a graph. Maybe that would make things a little bit easier. Let me know if I should do that in the comments below. And hopefully this is helpful at, at all. But I think it's helpful because when I jumped in, I kind of played around with all different modules and I wasn't quite understanding how things were set up. So I think this has been helpful for me. All right, so let's make this pstat class public. I still don't like that name. It's not the best name, but it is what we have for now. So now, there we go. So now we have the player stats here. This is not editable. We're not trying to set that up here. We just want it as a member for the wall control device to use. And now when we go to the Unreal Editor, verse, build verse code, all green. So we're good there. Very cool. Very cool. So that is access specifiers. Um, very short look at it, but also like modules in the path if you want to have your own module set up here. And let's see, let's add maybe one more thing here. So we have the class, which is actually very much like this class. It's just not as spaced out all nicely. So let's actually add some spacing. Okay, so let's add a function or method. So let's actually let's actually see, can we access points right now? So if we were to print, for instance, if we want to print out player stats dot points, okay, so I think by default it's also internal. So invalid access of internal data. Okay, cool. So that's good. That's good. So one thing in a more object-oriented kind of approach we like to do is encapsulation, right? So the three pillars of object-oriented programming: encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. You don't have to worry about that, but the whole idea is to encapsulate your data and kind of protect it and keep it safe. And so one way to do that so that people can directly access the points member or property is to keep it private and then use some kind of like setter getter kind of thing to it. So we can like, and again, this may not be good from a UEFN standpoint. I'm thinking more from a traditional programming standpoint, but I like thinking like this. So, so get points and then we'll make this public. And then let's see here. We don't need any parameters. And then we'll hit void, or no, not void. This will return an int. And then I don't think return is actually an actual keyword in this. So how would you do that? That's actually very interesting. Gotta look it up. But again, so the thing I'm thinking about is return points. Okay. So okay, that does work. I was like curious about that because you don't usually see this kind of paradigm in here. Okay, so now that is saved. Let's fix this. So let's call get points. That should be good. Does not look like it is. Oh, okay. So I'm using print in a weird way. That is fine. Something like that. Oh yeah, how do you do string interpolation in this? Okay, so I'm gonna look up here real quick. I know I've done it before, but it's not second nature to me yet. All right. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. There we go. Okay, cool. So we've got some string interpolation, no errors that we can see here in VS Code. If we go to the editor, do verse, build verse code, all green. So that's how we can build out a module and then use it. So again, as you can see, this could be a helpful class to manage or monitor your player stats, right? And for now, this class only manages like one player's stats, and then obviously you can expand on this idea. And I would like to do that actually next week. Get into um, other types, so arrays, maps, and then hopefully get into. My goal is as we go through this is actually to get through to the weak map and really get into more nitty gritty stuff of UEFN. That is not that's not something I really have done in other languages, so that's ultimately the goal. But I'm trying to build on this. I'm trying to build on this, and this is one of those steps to do that. And then if we wanted to set points, so set points. So we'll make this public as well. There will be a parameter, so we'll say value, and then that is also an int. And then this returns void, so nothing. And then we say points. Actually, since technically this is like a constant, so we do set points equals value. That's how we, let's see. Nope, that's not how we do it. All right. Oh, because I said it as a constant. Okay, so that was my mistake. I set it as a variable. There we go. So it's a variable, not a constant. Got to put the var there. Okay, that's interesting. You have to do that for a member of a class. And then do the set points equals value, and there we go. Easy peasy. File save. And then if we wanted to call that, we do player stats dot set points, and we'll say to 3, and then we could print this out again. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Do a file save. And there we go. Cool. I do want to hook this into a UI. I know people have talked about um, doing more UI specific tutorials or videos, and because UEFN's UI system is very unique and to be honest, I think quite arduous compared to something like Unity. So I will get into that, but for now, I just want to show again the coding programming side. So in review, what we have talked about here is we have a new module called player underscore stats.verse, and yes, that works by going to the editor. Actually, let's do a file save here. So file save all, first build first code. Now, it won't be in our content here because we're not actually, what am I trying to say here? We are not inheriting from a creative device. So I wonder if I should, in the future, put stuff in its own. Since this is not a device based verse file, I wonder if I should put it in its own directory, but that's something we can get to another video, another topic there. And if I pull up the content drawer, it's not here either. So that's also interesting to know. All right. So we can't access it here, but it is part of your project's like verse compilation. So if there's an error in it, it will show up when you try to build your verse code, and it will affect your builds and affect you being able to update stuff. So your modules are important, even if they don't have any creative devices in here. Okay, but also make sure to know about access specifiers, right? So by default, everything is private or internal. And so you need to specify that it's public so that it can be accessed, right? So for instance, this points is still internal or private. It cannot be accessed by an outside class. So the wall control device cannot access the points. But we're going to use the ability of encapsulation to keep it private, but then you can alter it or edit it with these getter setter functions or methods that are public members of the class pstat. So you can get points and then set points and you're good to go. And also just learning how to create functions again. Because I'm so used to creating with UEFN code, you're so used to creating like, private void functions. But yeah, you can actually have different types of parameters here and set the type of the parameter. Have no parameters, make sure it's set public and actually return stuff. So that's actually pretty cool. So that's what I want to share with you today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying subscribed and stay musty.